Out Loud podcast. I'm your host, Charles Van Loucks. Today, I'd like to talk to all of you about what a recovery coach is. Now, a lot of people have different terms for this, so you might hear someone refer to it as recovery coach, right? Or they might say a peer coach or the peer model or whatever. And essentially, they're all the same thing, right? It's just one person usually with lived experience in recovery, um, who goes through, an education and training process and state certification sometimes as well, um, helping to guide another who's in early recovery. So I think there's a lot of different benefits that this coaching work has. So let's see, almost 10 years ago when I got out of treatment, um, I really wish that something like this would have existed, because for me, I felt um, a gap in that step down in care. I went from being in a treatment center to, back to the real world relatively quickly. And it worked out. I had a lot of good tools around me, a lot of good support and everything. But I think having someone who's been through it, who can help to guide and walk along with you, can be helpful. So, typically a really good pairing of support can be, like for example, a therapist and a coach. And I think a good way to think about it is, a therapist will work towards a common goal with the client within an office, right? But then us as coaches, we're working towards that same common goal with the client, but we work out in the world, right? So, they might have some social anxiety that they're trying to work through, right? And a therapist is going to talk through some of that stuff with them, tell them about tools and things like that, which is very helpful, right? And then a coach might take that same goal and go out with them and sit with them in a social place where they're feeling anxious or they're feeling whatever and help them work through it. Like a perfect example is being able to reclaim certain things for our lives. Like, for example, I believe I've mentioned this example before, but I think it's a good one for this work as well, is reclaiming the pool hall from my own life, right? The pool hall used to be a very big part of my story in negative and also very positive ways, right? And, I felt that for me, it was important to be able to reclaim that game that I love, just in a different, more positive light kind of thing. And I think that this is where work with a coach can come in, right? So I think this is a place where, work with a coach can come in because, they can actually go with them. They can be that support person. They can help to hold them accountable. They can help them in the moment with retrieving some of those tools from their memory and finding the best place to apply them. And, I've talked about that before. And that's, in my opinion, one of the more important things for early recovery. It's not just, learning something and then hoping to figure out where to apply it on the fly, right? No, no, no. It's more about figuring out a potential triggering situation, right? Or place that causes us anxiety or whatever, right? And then figuring out a tool ahead of time that could help. And I think that a coach can do this well. So if we're starting to feel anxious, we do a breathing exercise together, right? Or we focus on something else, and I think by taking it in steps incrementally like this, I think that we can, start to see some success. So I think that's one major area where coaching is different, and unique. There's an education component to it. People go through CCAR for their education, learning how to be a peer coach. People can also go through the Recovery Coach Academy of Colorado, for example. That's the one that I did. And so currently, you don't need the state certification. That's kind of an extra layer after that, nor the national one. You don't currently have to have that. Um, I personally think it's a good idea to get it, to really, go for that extra layer of education and making sure you can be sort of the best coach that you can. I believe that one day, probably somewhat soon, it's going to become required, would be my guess. And I think that's going to be good as a whole. It's going to, um, just improve the quality of the care given to the client, right? With more education and more oversight and all of that. And I think we're also going to attract more coaches that way as well. One thing that's coming up is the Purdue Pharma lawsuit, the big class action lawsuit. The state of Colorado as a whole is a part of that. And I've heard that some of the funds from that will be coming to Colorado, and more specifically to the peer, you know, industry. And I think that just speaks volumes as to um, the facts. That this is helpful. And I think having multiple layers of care can be helpful, because sometimes people just need someone who's been there, just to bounce an idea off them and see what they think. I can't tell you how many times I personally have had a thought that I just, stew on, right, anxiously for, days and days and blah, blah, blah. And then finally I share it with someone else. And as soon as I hear it come out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a terrible idea. Don't do that. Right. And sometimes it takes hearing it out loud. Sometimes it takes hearing another person's perspective on it to, give us that moment of clarity where we can, you know, find the right answer for that, but sometimes it can be kind of hard on our own, nearly impossible sometimes on our own. And yeah, I would say if you're on the fence about it, give it a try. I mean, I can tell you our company Connect, we work with Medicaid, other insurances. We take people fresh off the street, Google searches. We also work with people on probation and parole and out of treatment centers, and all walks of life. And we have coaches to line up with all walks of life as well, and that's absolutely by design. We want to find that correct pairing for everyone, because it's important that you feel you can relate to your coach. You feel that there's someone you can even look up to and reach out in times of need, right? And I think that's another area where we, kind of shine a little bit, right? And as a man, at least, sometimes it can be difficult to be vulnerable and to want to open up and talk about things and this and that. And I think it's all about the environment. Sometimes people are, more or less inclined to do this in a office with just a single person, right? Sometimes they're more inclined to do so out in a park with a cup of coffee, with someone they consider a friend, even. And I think that's an important part to this whole thing, because we can't get through this by ourselves, and I think it's about finding the right mixture of things for your recovery. Like me, for example, I went to a treatment center, and then, when I got out of treatment, I did a whole lot of therapy, and I went to a bunch of meetings, got on some medications, that kind of thing. And that was kind of the initial um, mixture that was helpful for me. I had some support as well, really good support. And, for some people, it might look like, therapy and a coach and meetings, and, maybe also they want to, explore passion, right? Maybe they've always wanted to, learn how to play guitar or something, right? And then we can hook them up as a coach. We can hook them up then with the resource of, Colorado artists in recovery, like my previous episode with Will Snyder. Um, and, I think that's another part of it, right? Being able to be that guide and, you know, have resources around town that can be helpful, know where to find very inexpensive computers, for example, right? Knowing where to find yoga classes and art therapy and, even places where, like Sober Underground out in Littleton, right? Even places like that where you're able to go and experience a little bit of a nightlife kind of thing in a sober environment with people who are sober, and start to experience that positive side of life again and, explore that whole world, right? And sometimes it can be nerve wracking to do that on our own, right? So having a coach with us who can help guide us through that, who, if we're feeling triggered or something, we can leave together and talk about it, right? Maybe figure out a tool and re-enter, try and work past it, you know. So I think there's a lot of uses for it, and yeah, if you're curious about it, you have any questions about it, what this whole process looks like, post them down in the comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions and um, all of that. I think in particular, um, just being open minded to something different is a good place to start, and exploring what recovery is for you, because we've explored a lot of different, you know, forms of recovery on this channel. And I think being open to the possibility of, what your recovery could look like is important, and remaining curious, right? If we feel we want to learn more about spirituality, dive into it. Why not, right? I think that the potential upside of what we could learn from that and how we could apply it to our lives in a positive way greatly outweighs the, negative side, which would be, oh, it wasn't that impactful. I wish I had those 10 minutes of my life back, right? That's about it. So, um, so yeah, I have the website for Connect down in the description. And yeah, if you want more information, reach out to Connect as well and speak with them. We have a large, very friendly staff, and we do a lot of different events. There is the Denver tennis tournament, and we're a sponsor of that. That's happening here soon, and I think it's good just to reach out and get back into life, and sometimes, we can feel that it can be difficult to do that, right? It can be difficult to get past our depression or anxiety or, whatever's going on, and, be able to get to that place where we can feel happy again, where we can feel social again, Sometimes we just need a little push, and um, I hope that coaching can be that push for you, because sometimes we just need somebody who cares. Sometimes we just need someone who's been there, someone who can relate to it. Um, and I think that it's a tool to use along with many other tools in recovery. But I think starting there can be helpful, because then we can explore what the rest of that equation looks like for you, right? Therapy and coaching and meetings, or, recovery softball league, or, whatever it is. There's all kinds of different ways to recover, and I think being open to exploring what those potentials could be in your recovery, I think it's a good place to start. So I plan on having some of our other coaches on the show as well at some point. And yeah, just kind of diving into this whole world of recovery coaching, because, it is a, relatively new industry, and I think that it's, I think that it's powerful in ways that you kind of have to experience yourself when you're in recovery. I think being able to have that moment where we can feel at peace in a park, with a person who maybe we don't know that well, but we understand each other on the level of we're both in recovery. It's kind of like two war vets meeting. It's kind of how I think of it, right? We've both been through some stuff. We've both have seen that, and we can kind of bond in our, direction of improvement together. You know, um, yeah, just having that person who can walk with you through these things, right? They can help you. Like if you've never had a driver's license before, right? We can go with you. We can take you there. I've taken many guys to get IDs before, and get Social Security figured out, and I mean all kinds of stuff. Whatever barriers there are for you that keep you feeling like you're stuck. That's what we want to explore. That's what we want to get past, right? Because sometimes we see this big, massive cloud of just things we have to do and stress and drama and all this, right? And it can be overwhelming. It can be a lot, to look at the whole picture, right? So sometimes what I'll do with some clients is we'll zoom in, right? Just one task, right? So if it's, for example, getting an ID, getting their driver's license, right? That might be the task that we start with, right? Because then it allows them to get to work and do this and that. It would make life easier, right? It kind of applies to several different areas, right? But then we want to take that one goal, getting our driver's license, and we want to figure out what are a couple sub goals leading up to that. Oh, okay. Well, first I need to pay off my fines. Cool. Let's go down there and set up a payment plan, right? Next, I got to go and take the written exam. Cool. Let's go. Next, I have to do the driving exam. Where am I going to find that car? Who could I? Oh, yeah. Grandma said I could use her car for that. Awesome. Let's go. So it's about just kind of slowing down, right? And just taking one small thing at a time, checking it off our list, moving on to the next. And, what you'll find is that over time, you get a lot more stuff done, right? Because we're focusing in the areas that we can control, right? We're focusing in the areas where our time and our energy and our hard work will actually improve our situation. It will, you know, bear fruit, right? And I think that that's really, really powerful in early recovery, being able to see that we can do these things, right? Being able to see that it's not just a whirlwind of things happening to us. No, no, no. We can slow that down and focus our efforts and gain some traction. We can get to that life that we want. We just have to slow down and be teachable, be open minded and all that because, nobody recovers the same. No two people do, and figuring out what that looks like for you is so important. For some people, it's as simple as switching a job, right? They have a job that, is the company culture there is, people drink on the job or use in the bathroom and come back or right, whatever it is. And it's just a super triggering situation, but you have to show up because it's your job, right? So sometimes something like that, just finding new work, right? Just finding new people, right? Maybe we're living in a situation where, we're trying to stay clean, but all our roommates use, all our friends use, right? And that leaves us feeling stuck. What are we going to do? Well, I can help you find sober living, right? So getting into a situation like that can give some hope, being around like-minded people in sober living who are all trying to, work towards sobriety and bettering their life and all that, going through those groups, adding in some one-on-ones with a therapist or counselor, like it's all part of a large treatment plan for the individual, and they're all customized, and I think taking the time to really dive into that and really thoughtfully kind of think through some of these barriers and goals and, where do we want to go, right? Because the reality is, once we slow down and we work on that solid foundation, of our recovery in terms of, you know, not having constant cravings, right? Not relapsing all the time, that kind of stuff. Once we can have some stability there, right? Maybe reach out to a doctor, maybe they help with medication, maybe it's therapy, maybe other tools, right? But once we have that foundation solid, then we can start to really see some growth and improvement. Then we can start to look around our life and see, oh, yeah, here's that job, that super triggering job. Got to find something different, you know? Because the thing is, we have to improve the things in our life that in part led us to our addiction to begin with, right? And sometimes that can be such a large, daunting task. But, you know, by allowing us to help and slowing down and really thinking through these different things and kind of choosing that right next step for ourselves, and at the same time not taking on too much, and all that stuff, finding that right balance for each person can lead to some really good stuff. And because oftentimes, I think that it all goes hand in hand, right? I think that sometimes people will use for a sense of relief, right? For the stressors of life, right? The external forces that are pushing down on us, whether it's legal or CPS or whatever it is, right? And we feel that the only option is that temporary relief from a substance. But here's the thing, it's temporary, it's just a band aid. 9 times out of 10 makes it worse anyway, right? Then we have to go drop a UA, right? Then we're in trouble, you know? If we take the time to really slow down and get away from that instant gratification and instead look at it in terms of how can we fix our whole life. Now, what a big idea that is, right? But if we look at it from that sense, slowing down and doing this work that we've been talking about, right? Fixing these areas of life that cause us all this stress and all these problems. If we're able to do that, we can one day get that same sense of relief, right? But now it's permanent, right? Now we've dealt with the problems, right? We've found a new way to live, right? We have that new job, right? We have a different relationship, right? We have a whatever, you know? And those are the things that give us that permanent relief, right? Then we can see our kids grow up, right? We can get that new job we've always wanted, you know? So it's kind of like a reset button, this whole recovery thing. And slowing down and thinking of it in those terms, right? Viewing this as not permanent. None of these problems we're going through are permanent, right? Remember that. We can always find a way out of whatever problem we have. There's always a way out, right? So nothing's permanent. We can get to a better place. And sometimes it just starts with thinking differently. You know, we can't do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. Sometimes we got to be open minded to something that maybe we never thought of before, maybe we never considered, but it could be that thing, that leads us to that kind of life and place that we've always wanted to be. So, yeah, I hope to hear from you guys, and if you have any questions, comments, whatever, drop them down in the comments. I'd love to get a dialogue going down there, because I know this is such a new industry, and there's so many parts to addiction and recovery that it's kind of a massive topic. But just remember to slow down and just try to focus on one thing, and we can get through there together. We can get to that place that you've always wanted to get to, right? So we'll get there together, and thanks for stopping by, and yeah, I hope to hear from you.